Alrighty, second video today. So, as promised, what can we do? And I said in the last video that I hesitate to talk about what we could do for people who are abused or traumatized and are traumatized in a culture where speaking of it is not allowed. And what do we teach them? How do we get a person to have a good life in that situation? And I say I hesitate to speak of this. And that's because I hesitate to speak of anything that furthers an ongoing lie. And I'm not sure if I feel good about talking about treating family issues as personal issues. And it's difficult for me to counsel that or to even develop anything. Damn, nose is running. Go outside and smoke a cigarette. Uh, so I find it difficult to even want to develop anything to make the best of that situation. And the reason is because once we treat a family issue as a personal issue, we've stepped off of a path that really leads to true healing and true reconciliation and true forgiveness and true connectedness and true love. And I would say this is true because if you went out there and asked yourself who loves you, say your wife, your mom, your dad, whoever, your friend, who is your best friend, who do you trust most, who is there when you need them the most, who do you talk to about your problems, and you would list someone. And if I ask you, what is it about this person that causes you to have this relationship with them? What's unique about this relationship? And they will say, oh, I could tell them anything. And they just get me. They understand me. They don't judge me. And that's common. We all have friends like that in our life that we could tell anything to, that we could talk to, and who could understand us and left us out of the dirt. And we say, those people love us. I would say that acts of suicide is a person who is sitting there and don't have that in their life. That's the person who looks around and says, no one will understand me. So, what are we looking for when we go to counseling? We look to understand ourselves. And what are we missing when we're struggling in deep grief or deep sorrow, great loss, shame, fear? What we feel like is people don't understand us, people don't know us. So When I look at mental health, that's one of the core things I want my clients to see and to repair. That's one of the big things that my clients and my friends, because I'm no longer a counselor, those that I try to help, I see that in them, that they feel like nobody understands them. When I feel that way, and I do often, when I feel that way, it brings up a great sense of isolation because nobody knows me, nobody can see me, and that means I'm alone. That's why I feel isolated. So I believe that love is a connection. And it's not just a connection, it's a set of behaviors that support and demonstrate that connection. In other words, I was married to a woman I loved and I cheated on her. That was not demonstrating or supporting the love, the connection that her and I had. And it was disaster. She's my ex-wife now. And it destroyed something very good. So love is both is a connection and its action. It's just like our culture is a connection to the land and to the people and actions that shows those that commitment and that connection. So in life, and when I see people looking for help, uh, I might meet an alcoholic who is drinking too much, and I would say, "Why are you drinking?" And he would talk about, well, my wife pissed me off. I don't know. Society sucks. It's how I do whatever. But as I dig down deeper, what I'm going to find is a sense of isolation and aloneness. And if a person comes to me for drinking, I'm in a treatment center, uh, that person's family and close loved ones, they've already lost relationships and their relationships are in danger and such like. And they aren't going to feel seen or heard. They're going to feel like they're an alcoholic and may very well believe I'm just an alcoholic. But that's a lie because they're a human being. They have human needs even if they are an alcoholic. And in treatment centers, you're in a lockdown facility and people are forced to give up their addictive behaviors. And they're forced to do that because I, as a counselor, say, you can't hit each other, you can't cuss at each other, you can't holler at each other. If you holler at each other and you fight, I'm going to sit you guys down and make you talk it out and try to understand each other, try to respect each other. And I force that. People fight it for a couple of weeks. And after a couple of weeks, they realize, life is bitter when we do this. And all of a sudden, the tension drops out of the facility. It takes 2 to 3 weeks. Ask anybody who works in a cohort system of people who go through treatment in a cohort. And that's they all come in the same time, they all leave at the same time. 2 to 3 weeks. And the people that can't adapt to that kind of a lifestyle will want to leave. They will become more disruptive and they will become more and more distressed and they'll act out on that distress and they'll either get kicked out or they'll ask to leave. And usually it's a combination of both. And what that tells me is that there's a natural inclination in humanity, in people, in my addicted clients, in those who are struggling to meet their human needs in healthy ways. There's a natural inclination to return to healthy, meaningful ways to deal with their problems. Not all people will do that, but a mass majority will. And in that is my hope, because I've seen that. I've seen it plenty of times in treatment, that people naturally want to help each other. Now, I rarely ever treated non natives, but my First Nations people, you bring them out to a facility and you put them in a place where they practice healthy native activities, and they work as a cohort, and they work together and do things the way we used to do things, talk things out. They become happier and they become stronger, and they start to do that for themselves, and they don't need the counselors to keep telling them to stop fighting. And they develop good, meaningful friendships, and they start to remark, wow, I haven't even thought about drinking for days now. I love it here. And I've seen that enough amongst my First Nations people to believe and to know that given the right environment, most people will do what's right. And that's a societal change. That's a possibility, and that I dream of. That's my first hope, that leadership could stand up and start to create that society, start to hold each other to a higher standard of living when interacting with each other, to not give way. But barring that, barring a societal change, then what do we have? And that's to say, what do we present to our clients who choose to continue to live without acknowledging what's happening to them and being aware of what's happening to them? For example, people who have been traumatized in their childhood who go to counseling and reveal to me that they don't talk to their family about what happened because it's too difficult and too painful. What I know, and what I know is true, is that their family cannot be there for them. And that today in my office, what's happening to that person as we speak is that they are being forced to hide themselves from their family. And I have to know that truth. And they're being forced to live out that reality. They're living amongst people that love them but cannot hear the truth of their life. Now, at the beginning of this, I said, if you look in your life and you say, who is there? You say, what's good about that person is they're there. Is you could tell them things that you can't tell anybody else. You trust them. And you trust them because they don't judge you and they understand you and know they can't fix everything, but they could hear it. And it helps to talk about it. That's love. When you have a family that say, I love you, but they can't walk it out, that's a hard place to be. And we need to recognize that as helpers, mental health practitioners. our methodologies, our interventions, how we apply them, and what we apply needs to be very informed of this reality. We need to recognize that when our clients come to us in silence and with an inability to speak to other family members, that there's something happening to them. I would say if you want to know what it means to do that and how difficult it is to find joy in a family that can't see you and can't understand you and can't hear you, much less won't hear you and won't see you and won't learn to understand you, then imagine trying to be happy without your family. Imagine learning how to be at peace without your mom and your dad and your brothers and your sisters. If they died and they all died, be at peace with it. But they haven't died. You still love them. They still keep telling you they love you, and they keep trying to show it. But when you need it the most, they don't. It is impossible to explain that situation. And we need to see that this is an ongoing situation. We need to stop looking at the past all the time, at what happened, and look at what's happening today. We need to do that for our client, for our friends, and acknowledge what's going on. It's hard to do that because the last thing we want to do is accuse our struggling friends' families of not loving them. We don't want that person to feel more alone and more isolated. But this is the truth. When our clients come to us and our friends come to us believing that nothing is happening to them and that they're feeling the way they're feeling because of their past and their inability to accept the past and let it go and give it to God or whatever, when they go about believing that, they are always looking at their past. They're looking behind themselves and they're angry at themselves for not being able to do that. What happened to me when I was a kid happened. It came and went. I bear the scars, but it came and went. The time to stop it has come and gone. The time to be untraumatized and to have an untraumatized life has come and gone. And now I get to deal with it. And I have to adapt to it. And my entire family has to adapt to it. Why? Because I belong to them. When our clients come to us, they look at the past and they say, that's what I'm struggling with. But in reality, what most people are struggling with is isolation. Most family conflict come out of that. If you're arguing with somebody that you love and you're coming to an impasse and you're stuck there and you're hurt, you're going to say, but you love me. You say you love me and look at what you're doing. You're not understanding me. You're not hearing me. You're not seeing me. And we need to recognize that. and we need to create interventions that address that very large problem. When I want to talk to those who abuse me, I don't really want to relive what they did. I just want to talk about how I feel about it and what I think of it. And depending on my level of healing, I might be furious. I might be ashamed. I might be terrified. I might be grief stricken. I might be understanding. I might be graceful. I may be deeply righteous in my view of that person. Depends on where I'm at. I have no desire to sit in front of anybody that ever abused me and lay out what they did to me. It's been done, it's past. I might say, when you were traumatizing me in this way, I felt that. I felt horrified. I felt offended. I felt like God should strike you with lightning so you'll stop, because if God loved me, He would never, ever let this happen. Kill anybody that did this to His Son. I might say that, and I might address what they were doing, and I must do that. So, what do we tell our clients who are stuck in this situation? I would say that we need to be honest about it, and our interventions need to shore up this weakness, because our families are our center, it's our core, it's what we come from, it's what we originate out of. And when our clients come to us, we have to be prepared to face these issues, because essentially the core of us, what we come from, is disastrous to us, depending on what is being done and what's being hidden and what's being untalked about. Now, because family is central to us, we can't just say demand love at all costs. We have to recognize that doing that will result in people having to make choices, and maybe make choices before their time. And in their weakness, they'll make the wrong choice. But we also can't leave them blind to the fact that if they're depressed and feeling isolated and alone and want to kill themselves, it's not because of what happened to them when they were a child. They're not broken. Most of what they're dealing with is they have to go to a stranger and pay $150 an hour just to have the privilege of speaking to another human being about the truth of their life and how they feel about it and what they think about it. And they feel alone because they are alone. They feel isolated because they are isolated. And we have to prepare our people for that truth. And we see the outcome of that with a lot of our younger people and even our older people, people my age, saying family is not blood. Family is those who have your back. That's who family is. This person is more my brother than my brothers. This is more my dad than my dad. That's where it comes from. Because your brother can hear you, but your biological brothers, who are mixed up with your abusers, won't hear you. A lot of anger in that. And the truth is, I have brothers that are more my brothers than my brothers. I have sisters that are more my sisters than my sisters. And most of my struggle was accepting that. Most people struggle with feeling like they don't love their family because they can't get along with them, because they can't understand them, because they feel offended by them, because they're angry at them. And our when we talk to our clients, we need to help them come to grips with this. It's central. Acceptance. Acceptance that those that are family by blood, that which you come from, that which is core to you, there are parts of you that comes out of this and it will not look at itself. That your family cannot and will not love you as you deserve and need to be loved. Not that they didn't love you as you needed to be loved, but now they do, but they won't talk to you. You can't talk to them. Not that message. But if you can't talk to them and share your true heart and show your true self, that you are not being loved fully. And how you deal with that, what you do with that, and work on acceptance of that fact. Work on learning how to accept it and see your own contribution to it and how you could lessen your contribution and strengthen yourself to live in that environment. Things like CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, a part of which is RET, rational emotive therapy, uh, teaches about how to stop acting on habit. It's difficult if somebody comes and talks about sexual abuse in front of me. I'm going to feel boing, fired up. I was sexually abused. And with that comes all the memories and all the feelings associated with that life. My children too. It all comes back. I forget where I talk when I get triggered like that. Trying to teach our people how to live in that is going to be difficult. It requires a great amount of discipline. It requires a lot of self exploration because core to our life is this: we can't change our family. I'm a DeWild. I was born a DeWild. I don't get to change that. I have no desire to. I have a desire to change the DeWilds, to redeem, to correct our name. But that doesn't mean that we deny to our clients what reality is. Learning about, teaching our clients about ourselves in light of the truth, in the light of what it means to be in a traumatized family, in a traumatized community. I personally found that I had to leave those people just to stop the ongoing trauma. Leaving those people, I left my center and I left my core. I left what I come from. It's difficult. I pray often. My journey out is short and meaningful. Teaching our clients and walking through this understanding is going to be difficult without blaming other people for our problems, in demanding from our families that they save us. It could lend itself to a lot of people saying, I need my family to change. And I don't necessarily believe that. Actually, I don't believe that at all. Nobody really changed anything in my family at all. If any changes happened, it got worse and worse and worse, especially towards me. I never drink. I don't drink. Never got into drugs. Like to smoke weed, drink coffee, smoke cigarettes. So I can change, but there's a cost to it. I would have changed easier if I was able to learn to love my family at a safe distance and to accept both their and my shortcomings and failures and to work on shoring those up rather than spending most of my life trying to figure out how to be both loving and safe around people who not only traumatize me, but continue to force me to live in trauma by not being able to talk about it and punishing me for having traumatic responses. A lot of our people struggle in that. I think people coming out of that and adapting to that reality are going to need a lot of support, meaningful support. Coming to the conclusion that your family doesn't love you is a deep, dark, ugly place to be. But it doesn't mean that they don't love you. It just means that they can't love you the way you want to be loved or you need to be loved. You got to accept that. But we ain't going to reach a point of accepting that if we can't admit it. Group therapy would be really, really meaningful for this. And in acknowledging these things is our family's greatest chance at reconciliation, not only to each other, but to reconcile our families and our people back to a better way of being, back to a way of being before we started believing in wrong things. I think maybe we need to have some place for people to go when they try to find help through this. I think that there should be a much greater focus on family intervention and a lot less focus on confidentiality and privacy. I understand that people might not want to talk to a counselor who doesn't promise confidentiality and privacy. And I would say, without getting into it too much, why would people desire secrecy, which is what confidentiality and privacy is, secrecy? Why would they desire secrecy so much when secrecy is what we're trying to alleviate, when isolation is an outcome of living in secret, and we want to alleviate isolation and depression? Because I've seen people adapt so well to new situations, and even in myself. It's not like I've never been a part of a group. It's in the military. I watched myself be turned into a soldier with the quickness. 13 weeks, I came out of there a full-fledged American soldier. I walked in, First Nations Khoikhon Athabascan warrior, long hair, all hardcore. I walked out a soldier. People adapt. I think that a First Nations mental health program that embraces this idea of honestly looking at love, at what it means to be loved, at what it means to be in a family, at what we need in our life. I think we're more than capable of doing that without great loss to our people. I think that if those who we abuse could come to us in a more graceful way, or if those who abused us could come to us in a more honest way, we will find more truth from our abusers and more grace from our victims. Because I believe in the goodness of our people, not in the goodness of what we do, but in the goodness of what's in us. Not all people will do this, but if we keep doing this and we change and we start to focus more on relieving isolation through greater self awareness and awareness of the reality we live in, the more we do that, those who want to stay hidden will flee. And that might not be good in the short term, but in the long run, we'll give ourselves the best chance of getting out of a cycle of abuse where we're teaching abuse and abusive living to our kids and enforcing it on them as an adults and then turning them into an accomplice to enforcing it on their kids and their people. Again, thank you for watching and God bless.